This morning, Aaron Glenn was interviewed at the NFL's annual league meeting where he spoke out about multiple Jets players, some already on the roster, some just coming over in this offseason, and talking about the new ideologies of the offseason that the New York Jets will be employing going forwards under Darren, Mougey, and Aaron Glenn. And we got to break it down. So what's up, guys? I'm Matt Long. Welcome to Jets Digest. Before we hop into the video for today, only 25.7% of viewers are subscribed to the channel. So if you're not subscribed, please take a second, hit the subscribe button. It really helps me out so much. But hopping into what we got for today, according to New York Jets insider Zach Rosenblatt, it seems to him that Aaron Glenn and his staff feel like past coaching staffs haven't properly utilized Justin Fields' skills, and they feel like there's more to be unlocked when it comes to Justin Fields' potential as a passer. Quoting Aaron Glenn is saying, "We are going to let him play quarterback. That's what he's always wanted to do. I'm not saying he hasn't had the chance to do that in other places. That's not my issue. But I know what I want to do with that player." And Zach Rosenblatt then continues to say, on that perception that Fields needs to improve his processing, Aaron Glenn then said, "That is everyone's opinion. I think he's able to process well when he's given the opportunity. If you go back and watch when he was in college, he was able to progress as far as reading coverages. To me, I think that he's had a chance to do that, and he did it pretty well." So when you're talking about Justin Fields, of course, the offseason acquisition that everyone's talking about, one of the main knocks on him is his ability to read the field and determine different coverages to figure out which wide receivers he should be throwing to and which guys he shouldn't do, and just other things related to processing, which is reflected by him being one of the quarterbacks who has held the ball longest in the pocket. His time to throw has been one of the highest quarterbacks since he was drafted. So Aaron Glenn, he doesn't agree with the public when they have these concerns with Justin Fields. He believes he just hasn't been in the right system. He hasn't been in a system similar to Ohio State where he was able to thrive, a system that can fully utilize what he can do properly as a passer. If you watched this entire interview with Aaron Glenn, he is very, very highly confident in Justin Fields' abilities to become a better passer than what we've seen in the past. Now, whether you believe whether you agree with our coach or not and believe that Justin Fields will reach that potential, that's up to you. I mean, everyone's entitled to their own opinion when it comes to Justin Fields. So Aaron Glenn, what he's going to do is he kept bringing up the name Tanner Engstrand, who is the new Jets offensive coordinator. Even though he's a first-time offensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn is highly confident that he will be able to utilize what Justin Fields is good at and is able to bring out a better quarterback than what we've seen out of Justin Fields in the past. Now, if you watch Caleb Williams this season with the Bears, their offensive coaching staff, I know, is different than who they had with Justin Fields, but they expected way too much out of Caleb Williams this season. And it's possible that when Justin Fields was the starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears, he was expected to do too much when he wasn't ready for it. And that is what led to him not being as productive as a passer as the Bears were hoping for. So now Aaron Glenn is going to be going forward with a different approach when it comes to Justin Fields to hopefully figure out how to get the maximum out of this player. We also need to remember, while yes, Aaron Glenn's background in coaching is as a defensive coach, he is planning to be an all-around head coach. He says he uses the off seasons to brush up on offensive knowledge and becoming just the most all-around knowledgeable football coach as he can possibly be. And that is going to help him in coaching up the offense as well as the defense. But hopping into the next player who we talked about in this press conference being Garrett Wilson, he was asked a question about Aaron Glenn. So here's Aaron Glenn on Garrett Wilson being unhappy last year. All he had to say, pretty simple: "I wasn't here last year and I don't care what happened last year." He also went on to say that Garrett Wilson is in a good place right now. So if I imagine people watching this video understand that Garrett Wilson, the feeling within the media, within maybe even the locker room, was that Garrett Wilson was unhappy with Aaron Rodgers, whether that came from Devontae Adams getting more targets or just off-season scuffles that we didn't see behind the scenes. We know they had that disagreement in the preseason in training camp with Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. They weren't really getting along, but then Aaron Rodgers was, of course, shown the door a couple weeks ago. So now Garrett Wilson has gotten his college quarterback back, and he has a quarterback who he knows is going to feed him the football a ton, and someone who he is going to be more excited to be playing football with. So what I like to see out of this answer from our head coach is just Aaron Glenn is going to be himself. He's not going to be trying to answer for mistakes that Robert Saleh made, or just, he's not going to try to correct or make up for anything that Robert Saleh did wrong. He's just going to do the best job that he can do as a head coach. And I fully believe that this is the exact right mentality to have the head coach, because you don't want to overextend yourself. You don't want to make decisions based off of things that aren't actually problems that are present right now. You want to make sure he can just become the best possible head coach that he can possibly be. And obviously, if you're a Garrett Wilson fan, which I am, very happy to see Garrett Wilson sticking around. Don't want to see this guy going anywhere. I mean, he is one of our best players, and if he goes away, we would have absolutely nothing offensively. But it's not only Garrett Wilson of our star young players from that 2022 first round that coach had to talk about. Here is a quote from him via Harrison Glazer, a quote from Aaron Glenn on Sauce Gardner. He said, he can be the best in the league. He has the size. He has all the traits that you want. He's big. He has long arms. He can run. He has the ability to deny the ball. He can play zone. He can play man. He can do it all. Sauce didn't tackle as good as he could have last season, but his first years, he tackled his butt off. Keep this family-friendly show. So we know it's in him. He's going to get back to doing that. Also not pictured here, when asked about Sauce Gardner's hands, he talked about how when you're a player who plays with your back to the football, it's going to be harder to get those interceptions. And he kind of gave Sauce Gardner a way out of not getting some interceptions, which I do agree. The way Sauce Gardner plays, he's mostly a man corner who is going to be looking at the receiver. So he's not looking back for the football. So he's not going to be a ball hawk in that regard. But we've seen, I know this was last year, in 2023, there was that play week 2 against the Cowboys where he had a pick six in his hands and he dropped it. Sauce Gardner, to me, has had too many instances where footballs have been hitting him directly in the hands and he has to make that interception, and he hasn't made the interception. So if I was asked this question, I would certainly say Sauce Gardner's hands do need to improve, but Aaron Glenn decided to let him off the hook here and said something that's also true, which was Sauce Gardner doesn't play for interceptions. He plays for deflections, and he plays for PBUs, pass breakups. He plays in a way, if you remember him as a rookie, he had that really good play on Allen Lazard where Lazard was like 3 steps ahead of him, caught the ball, and Sauce Gardner punched it out of his hands because he's 6'4" with long arms. So he has crazy range. He's able to knock passes away from wide receivers from a crazy long distance. So that's what we know he's good at. Does that make him, like, I understand he's not going to be Sauce Gardner can be the best cornerback in football without being top 10 in interceptions, because that's not his game. I understand that. However, I would like to see him get better on his hands, and I would like to see our coaches push him to improve his hands. I'm sure Sauce Gardner is a self-starter. He's someone who is self-driven. I'm sure he's working on his hands behind the scenes, but I would like to know that our head coach is going to be pushing him to improve his hands as well, other than just letting it slide. So that's what we got there. But also, I don't have a image of it. I couldn't find a tweet about it, but Aaron Glenn is highly optimistic about our third 2022 first round pick, Jermaine Johnson, him getting back on the field. He also said that he is working his butt off, and he is highly confident that Jermaine Johnson is going to be very close to 100% and be playing football for the entire season for the New York Jets in 2025. So if you're a Jermaine Johnson fan, that's of course something that we're very excited to see. But in the opener of this video, I hinted that Aaron Glenn and Darren Mougey, they're going to have slightly different ideologies when it comes to the offseason. We know the last couple seasons, the New York Jets have been, I'm going to use the word hailed, but they've been, made fun of for winning the offseason every year. And Aaron Glenn was asked about this at the press conference, and he gave a very interesting answer. So after navigating the first couple waves in free agency with general manager Darren Mougey, Glenn has prioritized substance over style. He said, his own words, "It is by design." He said, "Listen, I'm just a huge believer in moving in silence, and you let things play out the way they need to play out. I think our staff has done a really good job of that just overall. Let's just make the moves that we need to make. This doesn't need to be a big hoopla with what we're doing." So Aaron Glenn, after this offseason, this was not a typical New York Jets offseason. A lot of the times we see the New York Jets come out and make a splash signing, and you could argue that Justin Fields was that splash signing, but all of the other signings with the Falele signing, all the underrated defensive tackles, the underrated wide receivers that we signed in Tyler Johnson, we've signed a bunch of players that people don't know anyone. They're making fun of the team in our comment section and talking about how these are pretty much nobodies that they're signing. They are what we like to call them are no risk, potentially high reward investments, where they are guys that if they're not good, they're guys that in their last spots, they weren't very effective, but they're players who, whether in a new circumstance or in a new situation, team-wise or new coaching, could have untapped potential that the New York Jets would be going after. Last season, we watched the New Orleans Saints let Zach Bond walk in free agency, where the Philadelphia Eagles signed him as one of their starting linebackers. And just this season, Zach Bond was one of the best linebackers in football, earned first-team All-Pro honors, and helped the Philadelphia Eagles have the best defense in football and win a Super Bowl. The New York Jets are looking for another guy like that, a one man's trash is another man's treasure type of player, someone who they can bring from looking like their career's over to, oh my goodness, we need to sign this guy to big time money. And the good thing about all these signings that the New York Jets have made so far, they are nothing other than the Brandon Stevens. And if they want to cut every single player or not re-sign them after 1 year, they can do that because they're not going to affect the books for the New York Jets long term. That's why they're just low risk. They're honestly not even low risk. They are no risk, except for Justin Fields, who is very low risk for what the reward could possibly be for a mobile quarterback. So even he's not even that risky. The only guy who could be risky is Brandon Stevens. So what this new way of thinking talks about, Aaron Glenn mentions you can't win anything over the summer. You got to win the games in September, in the fall. That's when they count. So I do like to see the fact that the New York Jets are trying to not be this team that just makes the big splash moves off the field. They're going to be a team that tries to keep the media away, keep everything that needs to stay in-house, and get guys working on their crafts. Aaron Glenn talked about how they just want to get 1% better each and every day. I think it's the absolute right way for this team to operate going forwards. And hopefully it leads to more success in the future and can get the New York Jets back into the playoffs and end this NFL leading 14-year playoff drought that we are sadly a part of. But if you enjoyed the video, guys, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're new. And as always, go Jets.